We're now rev it up. Again. Alright, mate. Keep going, mate. Send it all the way up.
We've got a Range Rover Sport TDV8 diesel with blown turbos, and the engine won't run smoothly at all. The only way we can get it to run smoothly without smoking is to disconnect the intercooler hoses, and as you saw at the start of the video, oil was gushing out with the engine running, so we clearly have failed turbo. So as you can see, we've lifted the body off of the vehicle, leaving the chassis behind so we can work on the engine. You can see a few of the components and connectors that need to be disconnected, like this on the rear. There's a few wiring plugs, etc. There's about 12 bolts from my memory bolting the body to the chassis, but it's mainly all the things that have to be disconnected. As you can see, lots of wiring looms, the brake lines have been disconnected. And we're just going to walk around and just show you like the power steering, the air conditioning, etc. Front and rear bumpers off of the vehicle, just to be able to lift that body off. It's quite an in-depth process, but they are made to come apart. As you can see, the gear selector cable off as well. There is also this wiring plug here which is easily missed, and we've also got that body earth onto the back of the gearbox, so it actually bolts on just underneath the prop shaft here. And then this cable here is actually emergency release for the park brake.
Well, that's going to be fun working around that. I'll have to take the heat shields all off. Probably have to like drop the exhaust off of its rubbers, just to move it back a touch. We might get enough flex, but we've then got to come back with the turbos.
So we've got the downpipes off the back of the turbos, so we can access and remove the turbochargers. We've got them unbolted from the clamps at the back. And we are going to be removing this one on the bank one side, on the driver's side, which we'll show later. And we've got the heat shield removed off the turbo, well at least loose, so we can get to the bolts holding the turbocharger on and the lines, etc. And next thing we've got to be getting off is the turbo intake pipe, which is just held on with a 10mm behind the chassis rail here on the left. So this is the reason, as you can see, why we're having to remove this catalytic converter and get it sent away and cleaned. The oil has bypassed the turbocharger, defective turbocharger basically, and it's will have soaked the catalytic converter, so we're going to get it sent away and washed out.
But this one was the one that was leaking down through the intake. So when we pull the other side off, we'll probably see that the oil seals failed on the inlet side.
Like they failed on the exhaust side.
That one has, yeah, because that one's full of oil in the exhaust. So like you can see the things that we've got to undo. So we've got to undo this oil feed.
Yeah.
So the new turbos come with that union there that runs across the top. I don't know if you can see that. So we're basically just going to do the takeoff where that banjo bolt goes into the side, and then all the mounts that we'll find probably down the back here. So this bracket here will have a mount that's going into the side of the engine there. So yeah, you can see the bolts down through there, right down in there, and then we'll get that all drain as well.
Yeah.
So that all drain pipe. Remember we saw that one that was damaged? Just so I can remember, it makes it so much easier. Sometimes.
There's the 10mm nut holding the turbo intake pipe.
As long as you get the bits you need.
Yeah. No, is the nut even? I want to. The next thing we've got to do is we've got to find that nut.
Swimming around in the back there.
Well, if it's in there, then that's fine. But look, you can see all the.
It's come off.
But that could be.
Hopefully, it hasn't found its way into the engine.
Yeah, it could either be in the boost pipes, or it could be that it's in the airbox, that it's gone back through the airbox. Like you saw how much that oil was flowing out through the inlet. Could either be in the intercooler, or it could be inside the intake pipe or something like that. So that's the next thing we've got to find, is that nut off the end of the shaft. So. So the turbo's seized up, it's lost its nut, maybe broken the shaft. Lots and lots of damage to the turbine, to the impeller wheel. It's actually slightly sideways. And that cannot be turned. So we can see the mounting points for the turbo, flange of the exhaust manifold, turbo intake pipe from the airbox, and the boost pipe. So now we're going to look in here most likely for this nut that's gone missing. And this is the wire and plug for the variable vane control of the turbocharger. As we can see, it's a 5-wire design. But that's not what we're coming in here for. Also see down here our oil drain back to the crankcase of the engine. That 2-volt flange that's down there. And we're actually going to get the return line cleaned of any debris or anything that's built up in it from the turbocharger failing. We're just replacing this turbo oil feed line, so we'll have to return the feed line for the fuel. These two gearbox and transfer case breathers. And we can get the lines out. It's all assembly. And that 1 bolt I've got there. It's holding the union into the block. So we found the nut that was missing off the front of the turbocharger, and it has actually snapped the shaft off the front of the turbocharger. And we found this inside one of the turbo intake pipes, just below the radiator. So we can now fit the new turbocharger without the worry of this being found and damaging the new turbocharger. So as we can see, the shaft snaps off at the end. And if we grab the turbo intake pipe that we found it from, it was, being that it was the bank 2 turbo, it was in this long pipe, and it was in the actual middle, lowest point of the intake pipe.
So we're looking into the back of this turbocharger again, and we can see a massive pool of oil that is sat in the bottom of the turbine housing and how wet that turbine looks. So it looks like it's coming out the back of the turbocharger, as we can't see anything coming into the intake for the exhaust out of the exhaust manifold. There's the usual carbon that you get built up from the exhaust of a turbo diesel, but there's no signs of wet oil or oil staining or anything like that. We can see one of the vanes there for the variable vane, and there's absolutely no signs of engine oil gone through this. So this issue looks like it has come simply from this drain that's been restricted on the oil drain for the turbocharger. If we look in the inlet, there's not a heap of oil in here, but when we were running the car initially at the start of this video, you would have seen there was oil still coming out of the actual intercooler pipe from this turbocharger, so it has been bypassing its oil seals. So we're just looking at the back end of the catalytic converter, and we can see oil has been bypassing the catalytic converter as it's been coming out the back of the Bank 1 turbocharger. Now if it's come this far and gone through the cat is going to be absolutely oil soaked. So we're just looking at the turbo drain pipe for this V8 diesel Range Rover, and you can see someone's been in here and levering or hammering, we don't know, but they've massively distorted the drain return for the turbocharger. You can see that big divot in there, and this is almost flat, so this isn't not going to help at all with our turbo lubrication. So probably why there's actually oil coming out the rear of the Bank 1 turbocharger. The other oil drain pipe I've had sent away, and it's actually been cleaned, so we have a new pipe to replace this one, and I have a cleaned original pipe that's been I think sonic cleaned, I think that was what they call it. So any carbon or any deposits that have been left by the original turbo failing aren't going to cause any restrictions to our new turbo's oil return. We've removed the boost and inlet pipes from the side of the engine and basically flushed them out with solvents and brake cleaners and stuff, just to get rid of the oil, so we don't have any excess oil staying in the boost tracks. And we also found the end of the turbocharger that failed on Bank 2. We found the snapped shaft with the nut for the compressor wheel, and that was in the lower intake pipe. So basically where this comes from the airbox and runs across underneath the radiator and across the front, it was basically in the middle of this pipe down the bottom. So this has all been out, and we've found that nut, so we're now not going to worry. Not worried this is going to go through our new turbocharger. We've also removed the intercooler assembly and laid it flat and filled it full of solvents, just to flush out all of the engine oil remnants that are still in it. So now we're 100% clean with our intercooler as well now. So basically we are ready to reassemble with fresh turbochargers. We have a new turbo feed as well for the oil pressure, and yeah, so that will be going on shortly. So we'll fix this Bank 1 turbocharger and then go from there. So I've got the Bank 1 turbocharger starting to get assembled, brand new turbocharger. As you can see, I've got it pushed into the boost hose at the top. Once I get this all the way on, I can do that clamp up, then I'll whack the fresh air intake pipe on. This is our oil feed. I've got the blank cover still on the oil return as well, just so we keep any dust and grime out of the new turbocharger. And then I've got my new oil return line just fed in around all the pipes and stuff, ready for once this turbo is bolted up. I'll start screwing this onto the bottom of the
bottom of the turbo with new gaskets, and onto the block underneath. So yeah, we're getting there. Had to transfer this bracket over from the original turbo, and just a couple of 10 mils. As you can see, the back of this bolt here is one of them, one there, and then one out on the back side. I've got some heat shields to put back onto the exhaust manifolds, which are just up the top here. And like I say, I've got to get this intake pipe back on, and there's a 110mm nut that's down here. It's a bit of a fiddle to get to, but I can get that back in, and dipstick tube back on, as you can see in the centre there. And then this breather that I've just got out of the way, just to run across once all the heat shields are all back on. So we're quickly building up this bank one, and then we'll move over to the other side. With this side, I have had to actually lift the engine a slight bit. You can just see there's a socket in between the engine mount arm and the engine mount. Just basically lifted it up so I can get the engine away from the chassis a little bit, just for access to remove some of these components, to clean them out and replace parts, etc. So yeah, new gaskets, new parts, slowly working for getting it back together. To get these turbos off, I did actually take these exhaust studs out of the turbo housing, so we're just going to use an E7 female Torx just to nip them back up again, just to seat them, nothing major, hence why I'm using a 1/4 inch ratchet. But yeah, it made it so you could just slide the turbo straight backwards rather than having to raise the engine completely up and out, and that worked for both sides. Just give them a tap beforehand, just give them a tap on the top of them with a hammer, a couple of taps, maybe put a punch on the top and hit that just to shock the threads loose. We're in Australia, so we're quite lucky in regards to we don't really have too much rust issues, but you think the heat cycles this turbocharger exhaust housing's going through and the manifold, they're going to be quite tight in there, so give them a whack and shock the threads loose and you'll get them out very easily. So the new turbocharger is on, and we've got the new oil drain tube on for the turbocharger. That's bolted to the underside of the centre housing and bolted to the upper sump. So this is a slightly better angle to see the underside of the turbocharger. I'm laying now underneath the chassis and looking through the chassis rails. You can also see where the pipe joins and bolts to the block, and the new gasket hanging out. I'm ready to reinstall this bank 2 turbocharger now. Got the new unit here. As you can see, our first port of call will be plugging in the connector for the variable vane turbo actuator, which we see here. We'll plug that in, and then we'll aim to get the boost pipe and the turbo intake pipe to press into their housing basically. So we'll line those up, and then we'll mount the 2 bolt holes on the side of the block here, and then we'll put the studs back in the turbo and bolt it all up together. As we can see, I've now got the wiring plug plugged into the new turbocharger actuator. And the turbo is now ready to be bolted up in place. So the turbocharger is now in place. The studs in the E7 female Torx heads. The nuts just loosely on, and I've got the mounting bolts started as well, ×2. My intake pipe and my boost hose just slid on. Obviously will be needing a bit of adjustment. So I've got the bank 1 heat shield on the exhaust manifold now, so we're pretty much ready to lower this back down and get the dipstick tube in and this breather pipe back onto this connection here, and then yeah, we'll drop it off the socket and back onto the engine.